This episode is brought to you in part by my loyal patrons. If you've ever wanted to directly support your favorite creative, then patreon.com is the place for you. I consider my patrons to be my small army of support, especially when I'm in need of extra bravery to keep doing what I do. Patreon has a very attainable mission to help every creator become sustainable. And for that, creatives everywhere are so grateful. You're listening to Bare Naked Bravery, a weekly podcast hosted by me, Emily Ann Peterson. This is the place where we expose the threads of heroism that stitch together the stories we admire most. As a musician, singer-songwriter, author, teaching artist, and business owner, I encounter some really fascinating stories. Every episode you'll hear features a revealing conversation with someone who courageously pours themselves out into the world. We'll talk about fears befriended, the terrors battled, and the courage created along our stories of bravery, quiet heroism, and all-out gutsiness. We open the Pandora's box of the dream-crushing constraints we all face during significant moments of bravery. These moments of bare naked bravery are rarely censored in real life. So if you're listening with little ears nearby, please know that some episodes may contain mature language and subject matter. The questions I ask today aren't scripted because I'm just curious. What is bravery? My hope for us all is that by listening to others search for and find their bravery, we will find our own. For that is what we need most, to know that we are not alone. The best way you can support the show is to share it with a friend or two. Send them an email, text, or tweet. Tag them in one of my Instagram posts. My handle's Emily Ann Pete. Or leave us a review on iTunes. It takes seconds and can be done from your phone right now. Bottom line, we need more bravery in the world. So let's be brave together. Welcome to part 2 of our conversation with Kye Alfred Hillig, a singer-songwriter from Washington, just like me. Now, if you are just tuning in and you haven't listened to last week's episode, part 1, I highly recommend you press pause and go listen to that first. You won't regret it. We talk about some really great things like truth and trauma and artist stuff. And all of that applies very much so to this next part of the conversation. So just as a clarification, I very much spontaneously put Kye on the spot in this episode, and I asked him to flip the script and become the interviewer for a little bit. He and I know each other pretty well, so I knew he'd have an interesting viewpoint on all of this. Again, if you don't consider yourself an artist or a songwriter, please soak this up anyways. I promise you'll get a ton out of it, and I know Kye would agree with me when I say that songs are just another lens through which we can experience truth, and truth is universal. Hence the reason why this episode most definitely applies to you as well. Okay, let's jump right on in, shall we? Okay, so let's do something new.
Okay.
Normally it's me asking you the questions, but since we're friends, you should flip the tables and ask me something.
Okay, well, yeah. I would ask you, if I were to ask you something, I would ask you...
This is totally on the spot, so...
No, it's fine.
I'm sorry.
No, there's two things that occur to me. One, we'll start with the one. One of the things that I have envied a little bit that you've been able to do, or had the will to do, I should say, or the gumption, is to go on those retreats that you do where you kind of lock yourself away to make shit, right? And I really like that idea. I like the monkness of that. I have a lot of respect for that. I don't know if I could do it around a bunch of Christians like you did. um, but maybe I could, maybe that
to
would
be fair, I'm very selective about which ones I do that and which Christians I do that around. So.
Fair enough. I would just be scared that they were going to be looking at me going like, you shouldn't think that or something. I don't know. But I really have admired you going on those kind of retreats. So I guess my question is, have you reaped any benefits from doing that? Do you feel like you're getting deeper down into the well when you do that stuff?
Yeah, is the short answer. Yes is the short answer. I think that there is something, I mean, you've done a lot of creative writing work, just in the traditional sense. And I know in that realm, there's a lot of just writing exercises where like you set the timer and somebody gives you a prompt and then you just go and do it.
Sure.
And although sometimes that happens I do these like songwriting retreats, right? So it's all songwriters in a room and we're all talking about writing songs, and the camaraderie of it is really nice. And of course, like in a lot of cases, all of the songs are written by just one songwriter.
Sure.
There's not the co-working, there's not the co-writing happening. But being in the same room or being in the same geographical proximity to other people doing the same thing that you're doing is really, really empowering.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it holds you accountable to like finishing what you started, of course. But it also is a little like net of safety too, because when you get to that point of like, have you seen that meme where it says like the creative process is like, this is awesome, this is okay, this is shit, I'm shit, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And then it's like, wait, no, this is actually pretty good. This is the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Sure. In general, I don't have that scale. Honestly,
that's good.
I don't believe in that critical element of it, really. A lot of times, like when I make stuff, later if I don't like it, that's fine. But I find that mode of like, this is bad, this isn't working, whatever, is the opposite of creativity.
Oh, I know. I totally agree with you.
I've worked with a couple of songwriters where we try to do like a co-writing situation. And I've noticed with some of them that they will edit as they go, and it always turns out to be horse shit. It's thin, it's paper. And I think if you want, David Lynch has this book about catching the big fish, right? And I think a lot of that comes with not like turning off that critical thing and just being okay with the fact that maybe it's garbage. I mean, I write a lot of songs, and, a handful of them are fucking horrible. You know what I mean? And that's just, it's a numbers game. I think if you just go into the well often enough, eventually you just catch enough.
Yeah. I do think that process that I just described, like those steps, like,
yeah,
I'm shit, that is like where you're way too involved.
Yeah. Well,
you like, your work is not you.
Yeah. And it's okay to make bad art. It's okay to make bad art, and anybody who's made shit. I mean, I'm sure Picasso at some point was making stick figures. You know what I mean? Like it's no one is flawless in their delivery. I think what changes it is getting that monk mentality of just like, I'm going to do this and just keeping on doing it and not caring what comes out.
Right. And I think that's the benefit of doing or working on something in geographical proximity of other people going through the same process.
Sure.
You are automatically forced to stay out of that emotional drama of making art. Everyone is just making art. That's it.
Yeah. And I think that's really lovely. Like, I love that idea. And although it seemed like when you were there was this kind of stuff like, there was like a communal food thing going on. And I liked how there seemed like there was this petty kind of bickering amongst people, like who ate my eggs, who got into my Captain Crunch, like this kind of stuff. Because I like that it's kind of supposed to be this kind of like almost like hippie kind of Christian hangout, like make stuff experience. And then there's this underpinning of like,
oh my God, it's a community. Anytime you get people together, things don't work.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. It's never perfect.
No, sure. That's anything.
Yeah. But I do think that finding a safe place for all of that, the good and the bad, is really important for anyone making anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Art or not, like you need to have there needs to be some sort of boundary and not rules, because rules is I hate that word, even though I love rules. But I know that I need a safe place to do or be reminded of where the safe place exists in myself.
Sure. And I think sometimes having a physical location like that can help get you to that place mentally. I know like J.D. Salinger, once he went into like his isolation that he never came out of, he had essentially like a fucking bunker on his property. If you look at it, it looks like the saddest place to make something, but it was very effective for him to close out the rest of the world and to kind of fall into himself. Yeah. And I think I could see where that would be really beneficial. And I mean, we've definitely tried to do that here at the house.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, you have your own bunker.
It's kind of a bunker, yeah, a little bit for the most part. But
it's a garage, but it's,
sound does penetrate it. But that's okay. It's not a perfect situation.
You would not be safe in a nuclear war.
No, not at all. Not at all. Although I don't think many would. Maybe some of those people hanging on to the ones from the 50s or something. I don't know how many of those are still buried in yards, but
I mean, but you have that. It like that safe place exists in an environment. It also exists amongst a group of people.
Sure.
And I think your environment or your, relational environment is the thing that reminds you of where that place of truth and creation and like guts exist.
Sure. I kind of also like how it might bring out this element of people trying to do their best work because you're going to have to show it to people. So I feel like in some way, having it known that you're going to bring it to people at the end of the day, there might be some part of me that would feel like a boxer that's been cornered in the edge of a ring who's about to get worked over. And so I feel like I would produce good work if I have to fight my way out. You know what I mean?
Like fight for your life?
Well, just because you don't want to go out there and have it be some like cheesy garbage that like you would want to put your best face forward. So I feel like that pressure might create something.
It's true. It definitely does. I feel like I write different stuff when I'm at a retreat than when I'm at home. Some of that is because there's a prompt, and like naturally when you have a prompt, a little more externally sourced than internally. Yeah. So that's been fascinating, to learn where that difference is and decide which side I want to lean on for whatever reason. The stuff that I write without a prompt, I think that I would say that all of it would lie within that truth Venn diagram, the light dark Venn diagram, but there's just a different color to it.
Mm-hmm. I like the prompt idea a lot. I mean, I think because you kind of end up getting in these patterns of like trying to find a way to get at the thing, right? And you end up like, you have it somewhat mapped out at some point, and having something externally go, hey, write a song about a dog or whatever, I think would work in a good way to kind of help break those patterns. And that's definitely something that I try to do. If I feel like I'm getting stagnant in some way, I will try to find a different way at the thing, right? Like I try to find a different road in so that it's a fresh feeling. Because otherwise it just feels like I've said this, I've covered this. Why am I beating this dead horse more dead? And so like, for example, like right now I've decided that I'm going to start writing stuff starting with the bass guitar instead of doing it, with the acoustic or whatever the other thing is, because I know that will create a shift.
Yeah. Okay, that was your first question.
Okay. So the second one is, so you've got your quivery hand.
Yeah, right? my little friend.
Yeah, your quiver paw, right? So you got that. And I'm wondering, because that being someone who is a cellist, where so much of it is touch, right? And like that feel, I was wondering with having that change and knowing that was going to somewhat corrupt in some way your ability to play that instrument efficiently, how you found a way around that, where you were able to come to a place where you felt happy about producing music without having that pacifier that you've had for the majority of your life that was so comfortable, and having to move into a different way of expressing yourself.
I loved that you called it a pacifier.
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love it because I think since I was diagnosed with the tremor, it was like somebody took off the blindfold and was like, hey, you've been sucking on this pacifier, this artistic pacifier for way too long. And now like, this is a great excuse to do something different.
Sure.
A lot of people, were they in my situation, would just stop. There have been so many reasons for me to stop and not keep going with it. And I think the thing that has made it, well, okay, so there's like a physical element because I still play a little cello every week now,
Sure,
lessons and just whatever. And I have to squeeze harder to stabilize the bow because I do have some muscle stabilization capabilities, but that like squeezing is not how you play the instrument. Every private lesson I've ever taken over like 12 years of lessons that I took, private lessons that I took, was all centered around just let it happen. Be open, let the bow go, like use your natural bow weight, open your hand, like fully relaxed bow hand, fully relaxed left hand. And so in order for me to keep going with that instrument, I was having to go against everything that I knew was right. Physically do everything that the hundreds of years of tradition of playing this instrument has taught all of us to do and not do, you know?
Sure.
The thing though, physically with doing that was, it was exhausting. So of course I couldn't do it for forever. I realized I couldn't do it as long every day like I used to. Because I get tired from squeezing. The reason why it's tradition to have a relaxed bow hand is because you want to be able to play for 8 hours every day, not have to go, oh, damn, my arm is so tired.
Yeah, you can end up with like a Popeye arm from playing the cello or whatever.
Although every massage therapist that I've been to in the last couple of years has told me that like my shoulder is just really tense because throughout every day I'm now trying to stabilize my hand, but subconsciously, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know I'm doing it until my massage therapist goes, hey, you need to let go. But I also think that letting go process is part of the thing that got me through artistically with this too. Calling the cello a pacifier is a really, really great.
Yeah, I just think like because I've been the guitar person like for most of my life, and I think if someone was like, okay, you can't have this anymore, I'd be like, mama, up. I think it would. I mean, and that's why I try to take other roads in. But if I couldn't go back to that at all as like a stable place, I think I would feel a bit adrift. It'd be like, you know, you've spent your whole life driving a car and someone's like, here's your way to work. And it's a unicycle. You know what I mean? So I could see how that would both be a positive and maybe a negative thing.
Yeah, it was terrifying, of course. But I mean, similarly to noticing there's a difference between the stuff that comes out of me when I have a prompt versus when I don't. I know that there's a difference between the songs that I write on different instruments. Like if I picked up the little ukulele over there, what would come out would probably be this cutesy little thing, you know?
I'm guessing something Hawaiian.
Perhaps. You know, like I'd need a little like polka dot dress to perform it, you know? But the stuff that's on the piano ends up being more like tug my heartstrings, you know, let's go to an Adele concert. And then the stuff that comes out of guitar is more like, hey, yeah, I used to listen to Dixie Chicks. You know?
I get it.
Yeah, so I think there's a real benefit to now not having that pacifier.
Sure. I was just curious about that just because, you know, that's a real monkey wrench thrown into the machine there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, you witnessed it from afar. You saw it happening.
Yeah, afar because I was worried it was contagious and if I spent too much time around you. then it would transfer to me. I've heard that it happens through hugging or sharing toilets.
It's like AIDS.
Yeah, supposedly, yeah, these things I've heard. But no, it's one of those things where these things happen in life.
Oh yeah.
But I just, for a musician, it's just like, well, fuck my life. You know what I mean? Like these kind of things, like hands, like I think all the time about, like, I remember there was a time when I was doing a gas pipe stuff for houses when I was doing HVAC work, and my glove got caught on this turning machine, and it started taking my hand into the machine because I was wearing a glove, and it had caught like some of the metal splinters and was trying to pull my hand in. And luckily I was cognitively able to like lift my foot off of the mechanism that made it move forward so that it didn't suck my hand in. But I'm thinking like how that would affect me creatively, not having use of my hand anymore, and how fragile that thing is. And then also socially, as much fun as it is to throw people off, at some time I'd like to take a break from it and not have a stub for a hand. You know,
you could really pull off a hook.
I probably could. I don't know that it would bring me endless joy or would be good for me spiritually speaking. You know, I don't think that's an easy road. There might be some value there that I can't foresee. But just hands are such a key element of so much that we do.
Oh yeah.
And being that close to not having it was just terrifying.
Before we get back to the conversation, I have just got to tell you about this awesome group of people I am honored to call my patrons. Every time a new song of mine is born, the first recording of it is tenderly revealed to this devoted group. They get to hear all my new material in its raw, fresh, vulnerable state and know that they are helping me do what I do. Because at the end of the day, they just want me to keep doing what I'm doing, and any reminder of that completely floors me every time I think about it. All of this support occurs through a website called patreon.com, which was started by this guy named Jack Conti, whose very attainable mission is to help every creator achieve sustainable income. In a world where artists are seen scrambling for pennies squeezed out of an expiring and broken economic system, the folks at Patreon have brought us back to what all creators used to do. Patronage is not new. But unlike a lot of popular crowdfunding sites out there, Patreon enables creators to receive support on a regular basis. The great thing is that my patrons set their pledges to whatever amount they feel comfortable with, which means patronage fits every budget out there. And of course, you can cancel at any time. If you're a creative type who's interested in joining Patreon yourself, I'd be happy to answer any questions I can. Just shoot me an email anytime. Bottom line, my patrons help me do everything I do, but better and more frequently. If you're interested in becoming a patron of mine, go to barenakedbravery.com/Patreon, Patreon.
Well, I mean, it's been really interesting. In this last year, I have kind of sided more along, I guess, the morose hope element of it. That probably one of the reasons why I love all your stuff is that I hear the same things that I'm thinking in your pieces. And specifically in this last year, it's been, I'm not a snowflake. My situation is not unique. It's not that special. It sucked, but it's not that special. And I think that's actually been a really healthy stage in coming to terms with all of this, is that, you know, like, it's not this thing that I should hide.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my only story that I have to tell, but it is a story that is very similar to other people's stories.
Well, and I hate words like journey, but the journey of an artist is a journey to the butcher shop, essentially. Do you know what I mean? And the thing that gets all of us through, largely, because there's only a handful of us that luck into whatever kind of situation is preferable for a lot of us. The thing that gets us through is just having guts. You know what I mean? Like, just going like, I don't give a shit what the rest of the world thinks about what I do. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it to express myself, and I'm pushing forward. Because doing anything and expecting the world to reflect a big fucking smiley face back at you. I mean, the majority of my life, it's not until the last handful of years that anybody's given a shit at all, largely. And so, I think about when good things happen now, it's weird to me. I accept the diet of failure as the norm, and the bad side of it is what I expect. And when the good things happen, I go, oh, well, isn't this lovely? What a nice little vacation I've taken from the garbage, because I think it's a losing game largely. And the only I really boil it down to the fundamentals for myself so that I keep focused on what's important to me and I can enjoy it. Like writing a good song and playing it in front of people and having an engagement with a crowd and making a record that's a piece of art, that hangs together. That's it. That's the beginning and end of it. And everything else is just fucking tinsel on a tree, and it doesn't add up to much. And it comes and goes. Anytime I play in front of like a large audience or I get to open for somebody that has a name or whatever the thing is, it's all this, oh, isn't this nice? But it doesn't fucking mean anything. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything. And so I'm just happy to, be able to keep creating. And I know that you are too. I mean, that's what this boils down to. Because otherwise you're thrown into the blender. You know what I mean? You're just going, here's my heart. I'm just going to toss it into this, and you become hopeless. And there's nowhere to go from there.
Right. I mean, which this brings it all the way back to bravery. I think a lot of people, and this might be a very big portion of the definition of brave, is that there's some element of you have no choice but to do the brave thing.
Sure. Well, I mean, you can always stop.
but then what would, like the guys that rescue a cat from a burning building, or a child from the burning building, they come out and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're so brave. And they're just like, their response is like, yeah, but if I didn't,
sure,
this is not a special, like I didn't do, this is not unique. Like you would have done this too, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's probably something in us that makes us keep doing it. I mean, really, if I had responded to the majority of the feedback I got as a younger person from performing and making music, I think I would have stopped, because it was, I don't know, years and years and years of like playing bars with like jock rock bands and going to shows and not selling any records and never being able to get the thing going really. And if I had taken that as a cue, I wouldn't have ever gotten to a point where I was satisfied with my work I was making as I currently am in general, or B, would have evolved. And so like, I don't know. I just think that there's obviously something, because if you step up to the plate and keep getting hit by the fast pitch ball or whatever, it doesn't make sense why you keep stepping up to the plate. So there's something there that we're holding on to, there's something there that is of deeper value than whatever the frills and the whatever of it are. At least, I don't know, here we are,
Right. It's, man, taking the pressure off of stepping up to the plate is nice, but sometimes we don't have that option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like taking the pressure off of, I have to do this, or I have to write the XYZ kind of song, or it has to be in this kind of album or whatever.
Sure.
But taking that kind of pressure off of stepping up to the plate makes it easier, but it also doesn't change the braveness of it.
Sure. Yeah. And I think part of it is, I mean, all this sounds like very romantic or whatever, but like, I think a lot of times we're channeling something. I don't know what the thing is. It might be something from our subconscious or whatever, but I think just being okay with whatever the thing is that's coming through, you know what I mean? Because there's times where I haven't wanted to make certain types of music, but it's what's happening. So I can't, like I would love to have taken a different road than I did, but that's not how it was shaping up. And so just allowing it to be what it is. If I'm going like, no, I'm making a country album. I'm going to strangle it. I'm going to hold it. I'm squeezing the hose and only the country songs are coming through. If I'm doing that intentionally, I'm setting myself up to make some bullshit, like no one's going to want to hear that stuff because it didn't come from a place that's real. And so I think letting it be what it is, I think is important, and not fighting it. Like if I sit down and I write cheesy pop songs and that's what feels right, well then, God damn it, that's what I'm making. I'm making cheesy pop songs, and that's what people are getting. I have a hard time working within like someone's set of criteria. I've had times before when I've been working with people that are like, okay, we have a lot of these upbeat whatever songs. No one's ever said this to me, but can you write a song that I can dance to? And you can sit down and try to write it, and then all of a sudden you're like, this is crap. This is not, because it doesn't come. You don't feel like inspired to go write a dance song. It's being handed down to you, and I'm like, this must be how people who make jingles for Nabisco feel or something.
Well, I will say that every time I've done any of these songwriting retreats, the goal of all these prompts is not to write an XYZ song.
Sure.
It's to write a song. So, like, if the prompt is write a country song and what comes out of you is a pop song, everyone's happy.
Sure. Yeah, and I can dig that. Yeah. Yeah, and I think if someone gave me like, I especially like the idea of like a set of like a specific, just a word, right? Like if someone says abyss, we'll use the word abyss again, and you have to kind of find what that means to you in some way, or something that it sparks something. The spark is what's interesting to me. I think I could see that being very like, oh, I guess I'm going to write down this road, instead of being like, I'm going to squeeze it through this thing. It's more just like the thing that lights it, that takes it somewhere else somehow.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, so let's wrap this up with one more question. What are you working on right now?
Well, I'm always writing songs.
No, but what's the most recent thing?
Like I said, that there's that bass stuff, the bass guitar forward stuff that I've been starting to work on. So that's the most recent thing. I'm waiting for something to take shape, because a lot of times, when I'm in the preliminary starting to work on stuff phases, like right now I don't know, I have about like 14 or 15 songs into something, but I don't know that I'm using that stuff. It's just I'm just getting the gears moving to see what starts to formulate, because after a while I'll start noticing a pattern. So I'm just going to the well and dropping the bucket down and seeing what comes up, and eventually I'll be able to start noticing that it's a thing, and I can start choosing the elements that represent that thing. So I don't know. I know that I'm trying to not play shows. I don't want to play right now. I've been telling myself I was going to say no to stuff for months. I was like, I'm going to go on tour, I'm going to come back, and then I'm not going to do anything else, and I'm just going to write. And someone would be like, hey, do you want to play this place? And it sounds fun. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then I'm like, oh, but I have no energy. Like, since I've come back, I've played like 4 or 5 shows, and I have nothing on the books at all. And so I'm looking forward to just dropping the bucket down instead of that.
I haven't played a show in longer than 6 months.
Wow.
And it feels great.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it feels really good.
Good. Yeah, I would also like to do this.
It feels really good. It feels really good because I think what I needed to do is remind myself that I perform for not myself. Like, the performance part is not for me. Done for me, I should say.
Yeah.
It's an act of service for whoever wants to hear the music that I play.
Sure.
As opposed to like, it's something that I have to, like an obligation that I have to do. So I needed that reminder of saying like, oh, when I do play a show, it's something that I want to do, not for me, but for other people.
For me, it's very selfish. All of it's very selfish. I don't like putting my shit in a car and driving somewhere and waiting and like talking about the weather with the people that work the door or whatever. I don't like that part of it. I like the period of time that I'm on stage and there's an audience there, and I like feeling the culture of the room or the place that people are at and playing to those elements, almost like I imagine people that do improv or something do. That's where this magic is. And then somehow sharing my feelings or my thoughts or my music, there's this exchange that starts to take place that can be very invigorating for me, but not when I'm tired. Like right now I've made, I don't know, what is it, like 5 records in like, 3.5, 4 years. I'm tired, and I want to take a nap. I want to, go on walks with my wife and pet the dog and drink scotch and fall asleep. That's what I want. And at some point I will be more than happy to get back in front of people and do my selfish thing with them. But until then, I just want to go into the cocoon and see, and make stuff and not show it to people for a while.
Yeah, and I think your choice to not do it is perhaps for healthier reasons than my own, because my own was like, I don't like doing this anymore. This is like, I got too tired. So then like, my benefit of playing, or my enjoyment of playing for people, was not as much as it had been before, because I like let myself go past that point, you know.
Sure. So you were just burned out and like going like, here's another song for you people or whatever.
Yeah. Or it was like, I was starting to notice that I just had like really not unreasonable expectations from the whole enchilada, because I was tired.
Sure.
It was time for a break. And I've really enjoyed the last 6+ months to remind myself that like, oh yeah, I really love songwriting, and I really love finding that truth point in a unique way.
Well, and I think like part of the killer of the whole thing is expectations. Expectations are the absolute worst thing that you can have. Maybe other people would disagree with me, but for me, I find that they're the worst thing you can have, because it can set you up for a frame of mind. You know, if I think like when I go on tour, I go, this is an adventure. That's all it is. You know, if shows go good, that's fine. If they go bad, it's fine. I'm going to be there. Right. Because here's the thing. You can go in and play a show to 8 people and go, 8 people showed up. What the fuck? And you can hate them with your songs, you know, or you can go, here's 8 people who are here to listen to songs, and I want to engage with them and be here with them, because I've seen people take it the other way and it's not of any value, you know? And so I think the best thing to do is to say, I don't have any expectations. I will go play my songs to the fucking sound guy and hopefully he enjoys it. And that's it. I mean, you know, and hopefully that doesn't happen too often, but I don't know how else to do it with and have it still be productive.
Yeah.
I have this motto that I borrowed from Gustav Mahler, you know Gustav Mahler. I don't have to.
I do know Mahler.
Yeah, I knew you would.
Not personally, but
yeah. Well, no one does anymore. But he has this saying that I think is what I clutch next to my heart, and I cannot let go of it, which is this quote where he says, what's of value to an artist is to go your own way without being deterred, without being either seduced by applause or kind of dethroned by criticism. And that's the thing. Yeah. And I have to remember, like, no matter what I do, I do it out of the enjoyment of creating art, and it doesn't matter what other people think of it. Because otherwise, you know, you look at those 8 people and you go, fuck each and every one of you. And there's nowhere to go from there. That's just a garbage. No, they don't want that. It's bad for them and it's bad for you, you know?
Yeah. Okay. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I just saw you the other night, but it's good to see you again.
I know, it is. That guy laying on the truth telling super thick. I love it. I also know that everyone loves the cello, but hearing him call it a creative pacifier is pretty stinking accurate. He nailed it. Getting it ripped out of my life really was one of the best things that could have happened for my expression. And I'm not the kind of person who thinks that going through the ringer is a prerequisite to making art. It's not. I really do think expression is a choice, and acting upon our choices is not a thing done out of victimization. But sometimes we really do need to get a bit jostled and have someone shake our little snow globe to remind us what it is. I am so grateful to Kye for not only joining us today, but for also writing snow globe shaking songs that prompt us to see things the way they really are. In both parts of this conversation, Kye mentioned a couple books and other things, and you'll find links to all of those and some of my personal favorite songs of his in the show notes, which you can find by going to barenakedbravery.com. If you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it for you, then please give us a review and rate the show in your iTunes desktop app or on your podcast app on your phone. Seriously, it helps us out a lot more than it is a hassle for you. And then I get to read my favorite ones on air to you, like Rockin' Real Estate Rebel from the US says, really great show with fantastic resources and knowledge shared. Emily does a fantastic job of hosting. Thank you so much. It's so great getting those kinds of reviews. And also, you know,
some of the not so great ones are fine too. If you have some questions or comments or concerns about the show, then let me know. Like, for instance, did you like this 2-part episode thing that we did? And also, maybe you have a question for a guest. You can go ahead and leave that in your review for the podcast, and we will get to it for sure. As always, the music from today's episode is brought to you by my friends at Music Box Licensing, a creative music agency dedicated to finding and crafting unique soundtracks for creative projects. So if you've got a video project that you're working on and you need some music to go behind it, I know a guy. You can find out more information on all of that at barenakedbravery.com/sponsors. And I am looking forward to being with you next week. We have some really cool things for you. Until then, I have one message for you. It is this: be yourself, be vulnerable, be truthful, like Kye. Be brave, because the world needs more of your bare naked bravery.